Well, the Tigers were in control of this ball game late and still lost by 5. We'll talk about that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, August 26th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen. Every single day, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. The Detroit Tigers played again, I almost said it in Oakland, against the Sacramento A's, or the name redacted A's, and they lose 8-3. Tigers fall to 78-55 on the season. The Athletics improve to 61-72 on the year. So first thought is that this is obviously a tough loss. Anytime you have a lead late in a Skubal start, you want to win. You expect to win. That's where they have racked up a lot of wins over the last 2.5 years, is in those situations. And this is the rare case in which they not only lose, but they lose comfortably. This was even out of the 4-run rule, right? Where a ball game is managed way differently when it's within 4 runs versus when it's outside of 4 runs. They end up losing by 5, all things, well, I will say when all things considered. When everything was said and done, rather. They end up losing final score of 8-3, like I said. Yeah, I mean, the defense was brutal. Skubal threw a couple of bad pitches. Offense, I don't think, did nearly enough against a weak pitching staff either. I know people are going to focus on Skubal and focus on the Grand Slam and whatnot, and that's fair. That's why he's going to be, maybe the highest paid pitcher in the history of baseball, is because that expectation, that pressure is put on him. I don't think that it's unfair to focus on that. That pitch caught too much of the plate. And I think that he would be the first person to tell you that it leaked over the heart of the plate a little bit more than he would have intended when that pitch was called or when setting up for it. But at the end of the day, there was a handful of other stuff in this ball game that still could have saved the day and still could have prevented what ended up happening from happening. Just all around a really odd ball game. And I really felt watching it, maybe I'm totally off base here, I really felt watching it that they were the better team and that they were going to win throughout almost, until, I guess, the bottom of the 7th inning. And here we are talking about a comfortable loss. It's funny, I say they felt like the better team for a lot of it if you ignore defense as an aspect of baseball. They looked like the better team throughout a lot of it. Tarik Skubal, we'll talk about it in what went wrong, I guess, technically. He is, I think, going to get tagged for 5 earned runs. We'll see. The final line, I've seen a couple of different lines about, what they're considering an earned run and what they're not with all the errors that were in this ball game. But either way, we'll talk about him in a second. I felt like 12 strikeouts, no walks. Like, I feel like he was in control until the 7th inning. The offense was getting on base consistently. They couldn't hit anybody in for the life of them, but they were getting on base consistently and hitting around an Oakland A's. Goodness. What are we doing? Oakland A's. Like, I don't even want to get into that. Okay, the Sacramento No City A's until whenever they are officially in Vegas. Anyway, defense really cost them, and that is where we'll start on the side of things of what went wrong. I want to start with Zach McKinstry, who made 2 brutal defensive plays that both directly led to a handful of runs being scored against Tarik Skubal. You had the error where he just absolutely airmails a ball into almost the first base dugout over Torkelson's head at second base, and then nobody's on first base, so the ball just keeps rolling. You have that. That allows the runner to get an extra 90 feet, which then allows a ground ball to second, a ground out to second, to be an RBI for Jacob Wilson. That costs them 1 run. Now, again, they lose by 5. 1 run, okay, idiot, we can take that run away. And are you happy now? No, because then he also kicked a ball in that 7th inning to load the bases. If he fields that play, no one scores. There's a man out at first base. And then earlier in that inning, you have Gleyber Torres making an athletic play to his right, throwing the ball across his body. That's a very difficult throw to make. And that is an extremely scoopable baseball. Torkelson has not been very great defensively in his Major League Baseball career. The only thing that he has consistently been good at since his rookie season even is scooping the baseball. That's a very scoopable ball. It's not a tricky hop or anything like that, and it just catches him in the heel of the hand for whatever reason. And here we are. So we look at, the errors is going to be only 1 or 2 errors, depending on what the final scoring ends up being in the ball game. But there's 3. Even, Wenzel Perez had a play in the outfield that he could have got the ball in quicker and maybe prevented that whole extravaganza from even happening with Zach McKinstry throwing the ball over Torkelson's head at first. Just brutal defense. And I don't like saying that any one person or any one area or aspect of a team completely costs them a game, because baseball, there is no clock and there is so many different ways that you can affect the game. But it's really hard for me not to look at this one specifically and go, wow, if some halfway decent defense is played throughout 9 innings, this is probably a 3-1 victory. Let's talk Tarik Skubal. We will do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you all about our friends over at FanDuel. August 26th, today, as you listen to this, is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champion before week 1 kicks off, this is your moment. Okay, there's so much fun action to get in on with FanDuel, and I think that's probably my favorite aspect, is the trying to pick the division winners before the season starts. A, there's a lot of good value there, but B, there's a couple divisions that are really wide open and you could really make your mark in. So visit FanDuel today, the FanDuel app or the website, and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, and that is today. FanDuel, play your game. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we, of course, will be back tomorrow recapping Game 2 against the No City Athletics. Also, we have an important request here at Locked On. Locked On wants to hear from you, the listener. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't like, and answer questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes of this episode. Thank you for helping us out. Talking about this 8-3 loss to the Athletics, What went wrong? We talked about the defense. We talked about that plenty. We can move on. Tarik Skubal with a weird start goes. So the line that I have is 6 2/3, 7 hits, 6 runs, 5 of those earned, no walks, and 12 strikeouts. But there's a couple of box scores out there from different websites that have him at 1 earned run. So we'll see again what is ruled an error, what is not, and how they ultimately score it. By the time you listen to this on Tuesday, you will probably know which one they end up rolling with. His ERA, if it's 1 earned run, is only at 2.28. If it's 5 earned runs, will obviously be much higher than that. I thought the stuff was honestly fantastic, and I think it was much better in this outing than we have seen it in the month of August. He had 7 strikeouts through the first 3 innings and ended with 12 Ks to no walks. The changeup was great. The fastball was great outside of 2. 2 of them were not, and both of those were home runs. He threw a high sinker that was really over the heart of the plate for the solo homer earlier, and then obviously the grand slam. It wasn't like it was middle or some meatball over the heart of the plate. It was 86 inside, or 96 rather, 96 inside. But it definitely leaked over the heart of the plate and definitely caught way too much of the middle. And I mean, credit where credit is due too. Shea Langoliers has legitimately been one of the best hitters in all of baseball. It's not like he gave up some grand slam to a no-name guy. Since the All-Star break, Langoliers has literally been one of the best hitters in the entire American League. And you make even a mistake of a couple of inches to a guy that's swinging that hot of a stick, and that's the kind of thing that can happen. But I mean, like I said, the changeup was great. The slider outside of those two or the fastball outside of those two were great. The slider, I also thought early in the ball game he utilized really well. Kind of went away from it later. I think that's probably just something to do with not fatigue. I mean, he was throwing 100 there, even at 95 pitches at the end of the ball game. But I do think that some of that is just the later you get into a game, you want to navigate with pitches that you know and trust really well. And so I think that he's probably just going to rely on those pitches more so as he gets deeper into ball games pretty consistently. But I thought this is 2 outings in a row where I kind of liked what the slider was offering at least. Again, if multiple errors aren't made in this game, there's a really easy argument that, again, that's Zach McKinstry throw over Torkelson's head and then Zach McKinstry kicking baseball at shortstop there in the 7th. I don't know. Like there's a conversation to be had that this is a 12 strikeout, no run or no walk, 1 run performance. It's yeah. And look, I know a lot of people are looking at his August numbers and then they look at this start and they go, wow, like something is super wrong. I really do not clump this start in with the other outings in August. Some people just look at amount of runs given up, and it's as simple as that. And you know what? If you have a streak where you're giving up runs, then you have a streak and a stretch where you're giving up runs, and that's all there is to it. Nothing else matters. And that's fine. If that's how you take in the game of baseball, more power to you. I have nothing to. I can't counter that. I have nothing to counter against that. And he certainly has had a much higher ERA in the month of August than he has really the rest of the entire season, and even dating back to last season. Right, he's been the best pitcher in baseball. But this outing specifically is really hard for me to kind of clump in with any of that. Like, is he trending down? Like, look at his last, 5 or 6 outings and look at this one. The stuff was great, man. This was not the same stuff that he was offering, 2 starts ago when he didn't have a strikeout through like 4 innings or didn't have a swing and miss the first time through the lineup or whatever. That is just not at all what we saw in this ball game. The stuff was great. The command is about what it usually is. He pitched in a minor league baseball park and threw 2 bad pitches, and one of them I don't think should have even happened. So I guess what I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm making a bunch of excuses for him. Okay. He threw bad pitches and the results are what they are. Okay. If it ends up being 5 earned runs, I'm not going to argue that it shouldn't be 5 earned runs. He gave up a grand slam, no matter how you slice it. That's not good enough for a guy that I think is the best pitcher in baseball. My point is that come postseason time, my faith in Tarik Skubal has not wavered. I'm still giving him the ball in game 1 without any shadow of a doubt over pretty much any pitcher in baseball. Nonetheless, anybody on the Detroit Tigers. I still have the utmost faith and confidence in him, and he still had 12 Ks and no walks. So, okay. I think that's pretty much every angle I can attack that at. Again, if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, don't make excuses, I promise I'm not trying to. I promise. It's just how I saw the game unfold from where I was sitting. Also, we've talked about Tarik Skubal, gives up 5, gives up 6 total. We talked about the defense. The offense is not off the hook here. The offense against JT Ginn for the first 2 times through the lineup was abysmal. Ginn goes 5 1/3, 7 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts against the Tigers offense. Its ERA was around 5, just under 5 going into the outing. And it does end at about the same spot because they were able to make adjustments and get to him the 3rd time through the lineup, which we'll talk about that when we discuss what went right in this ball game. But 8 strikeouts and 0 success whatsoever in the first 5 innings. I mean, you can even, zoom out and look at it this way against arguably the worst bullpen in baseball and a starting pitcher that had an ERA of 5 going into the game. You scored in 1 inning in the entire ballgame. 1. And look, again, I'm not trying to take away from what JT was spinning up there, okay? Changeup, fantastic pitch, disgusting. Sinker, fantastic, disgusting pitch. Changeup and sinker move the same direction and have the same shape and have a 10-mile-an-hour difference in velocity. Beautiful, okay? He tunneling those pitches together, he was doing very, very well. But goodness gravy, there were also some incredibly non-competitive pitches that were swung at. Big time hacked at. Wenzel Perez had one. Colt Keith had a couple. Riley Green had a couple. Just change-ups that are like feet outside. And again, they adjusted. They tagged him in the 6th. And when the lineup flipped over the 2nd time, the 3rd time through the lineup, they were able to get a lead with Skubal on the mound late in the ball game. That is almost always enough to get a win. But this, I promise, is something I'm bringing up no matter what the end result is. It's frustrating to not get anything going against a guy that had very, very far from pinpoint command. Good stuff, not very good command. And the Tigers were not able to take advantage of that until far too late, in my opinion. Colt Keith and Jahmai Jones combined for 0 for 5 in the leadoff spot. Zach McKinstry goes 0 for 4. But really, mostly everybody got on base. And even, most of the guys even got on base multiple times. The issue was clutch hitting. They went 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position. That is comfortably the biggest reason we're having this conversation. Do not get it twisted. Okay? Speaking strictly about the offense. They had 10 hits and 14 base runners and only scored in 1 of 9 innings. They were all over Kelly and Sean Newcomb, and they just could not get a big hit with runners on. It was incredibly frustrating. It really felt like the entire 5th inning on. Well, and then in the 1st inning too, I guess, but it felt like the entire second half of the game, they had multiple runners on base every inning and just did nothing. Andy Ibanez had a brutal at-bat in the 7th inning too that led to a double play when they kind of had, they were within 3 still. You have a man on base, Dingler gets on, and I think that was a bad pitch to swing at. Okay. Now we've talked about the bullpen, which also didn't do very well. Like it's so odd because they go to a different bullpen. Okay, they do not go to Hannafy and Sommers if the Tigers are up 3-1 going into the 8th inning. So this part of the conversation is kind of null. But like I think the offense could have done way better. And I already had a lot written out about what I was going to say and complain about the offense, even if they did win. Skubal, we already kind of, talked about and went down that rabbit hole. The defense cost them a lot of runs. Like it is so weird to be in this position where they were going to win. I thought they were the better team for a lot of it on the mound and in the batter's box. And yet we're talking about a comfortable victory with a lot of things that went wrong. All right, let's put a bow on this. Get you out of here and get you on with your Tuesday. We'll do that right after this. First, though, got to talk to you about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5 Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5 Hour Energy Transfusion delivers a clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5 Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the U.S. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. As always, let's stop talking about the negative here after we talk about the bullpen that did not do very well either. I mean, Hannafy and Sommers both went out there, both gave up earned runs. I guess Hannafy technically gave up a base runner, and then Sommers gave up the home run that scored his runner and Hannafy's homer. But regardless, I think Hannafy continues to just prove that he, A, doesn't have very much swing and miss whatsoever, and B, is really only consistently trustworthy against right-handed hitters. So we'll see how he's kind of used the rest of the season, but we know that AJ has really liked going to him early as kind of like the first man out of the bullpen. So we'll see if that continues now that he's back in the majors. And then Sommers, I mean, he gave up an absolute bomb to Kurtz there in the 8th inning. I just really don't see him sticking on the roster the rest of the season. I hope I'm wrong. I root for every single person who has ever put on a Detroit Tigers jersey and always will. Hopefully the pitching coaches that we rave about all the time can help him make some adjustments and maybe he can figure it out. But he's a lefty that throws like low to mid 90s at best. And his slider just really, and again, maybe this is just an outing specific thing. We'll see if it's a trend, but I just don't think the slider had any snap to it at all. There is no bite in that thing. That was a big loopy slider to a guy that has been crushing the baseball lately, but is worse against lefties pretty comfortably. And he just destroyed that. And every slider he threw, I thought the same thing. I was like, man, there's just not a lot of life on that pitch. What went right in this ball game? Kerry Carpenter, all over everybody, goes 3 for 4 with a walk, reaches base 4 times at bats. And yeah, I mean, not only got at bats, but had success against lefties as well. Different pitches were thrown at him. He kind of got the kitchen sink all throughout this game and still was able to really be all over everything. Went first to third twice on the base paths as well, which is good to see given his injuries with his hamstrings earlier this season. So yeah, I mean, he's the star of the show. He was fantastic in this one. Riley Green, 2 for 4. had 2 strikeouts. I know some people will focus on that, but 2 big hits and a run scored, and also success against a left-handed pitcher. I think that's important as we head into the final month of the season here. We really need Carpenter and Green to be options against lefties. That's going to be really important down the stretch. Wincio Perez, 2 for 4 with 2 RBI, obviously coming off that big hit against Newcomb there in the, the sixth inning. That was good to see. He continues to be a threat, really, no matter who's on the mound, which is just absolutely awesome to see out of him this season. And then, I do want to compliment the offense for the adjustments they made the third time through the lineup. I know I talked about that a little bit earlier and what went wrong, but they spit on a lot more changeups from Ginn in that inning, and after the lineup flipped over again. Yeah, it's one of those games, man. And I say it's one of those games. I almost feel like Tigers fans know what I'm saying in that. We could transition to stuff now. Like, there is there an athletics curse? I thought we might be rid of this, not having to play in the Coliseum anymore. It's just, that's a weird park. Maybe just weird stuff happens there. We're going on like 20 years. Like, this isn't like, this is like this fun, cute little thing that happened, once over the last couple of seasons. No, we're talking like 2 decades of regular season baseball where the Tigers are just absolutely atrocious when they play against the Athletics on the road. Horrible. And this ball game just felt exactly like everything we've been used to when they play against the Athletics over the last 20 years. They have a really good pitcher on the mound. He throws a good game. Somehow that gets ruined and it blows up and the Tigers get crushed. They're kicking the ball all over the field. They're throwing the ball into the bleachers from shortstop. Just annoying. I really don't have much else to say. It's just annoying. I thought the umpire was inconsistent. I thought I really liked AJ sticking up for Tarik there. I thought that was super unnecessary. Super, super unnecessary. I think the quote in the post game from AJ was, I told him, I'll worry about my players. You worry about calling balls and strikes. And I think that AJ is 100% justified in that. Some roster news. Ryan Kreidler is no longer a part of the Detroit Tigers organization. He was DFA'd earlier this week, this past weekend. And the Pittsburgh Pirates on Tuesday morning officially pick him up and option him to AAA. So he is a part of the Pittsburgh Pirates organization and is no longer not longer on the Tigers 40-man, but no longer a part of the Tigers organization in any capacity. I wish him the best, truly. I know that the production really wasn't there. I think the decision to DFA him was kind of a no-brainer. I totally get it from a baseball perspective, but he's a guy that everybody in the clubhouse loved, everybody in the media that talked to him loved, and just seems to be a really good guy that at one point people had pretty high hopes for. Least we forget 2021 Ryan Kreidler, who absolutely tore the cover off the baseball all throughout the minor leagues and then broke his hand. And really, I don't know if I'm not saying correlation is causation. I don't know if that single-handedly did it or not, but really was never the same after that, offensively at least. And so we'll see if he can find it again in Pittsburgh or in Altoona or wherever the heck their AAA team is these days. Once they restructured everything, I lost my edge on knowing every single team's minor league team. Okay. Oh, shout out Bobby Scales too. Shout out Bobby Scales, who I think did a great job on TV. It's usually the radio commentator with Dan Dickerson. Did a great job on TV, I think. You got game 2. You got to go win. you got to go out there and win. And that's the thing, right? It's frustrating because it's a Skubal start, and it's Skubal on the mound when the bad happened. It's not like the bullpen blew a Skubal start. The defense and Skubal blew a Skubal start. But now you're in a position where obviously you've burned through Tarik already in the rotation. So you got 2 non-Skubal starts, and you got to go 2-0 to win a series on the road against a team that you struggle on the road against for whatever reason. They're going to have Beto going for the Athletics against Charlie Morton for the Tigers. It's going to be interesting, too, that lineup that already is decent as is, or in this game on Monday night. You're going to see a lineup on Tuesday night that is probably even better. You're going to see Kurtz starting because the Tigers are going to go with a righty, and you're going to see Lawrence Butler, who's a pretty darn good young player that has really kind of made a name for himself as well. Like, two of their best hitters are now going to play and weren't even playing because they don't hit lefties very well. So it's not going to get a ton easier offensively. That being said, you should score a lot more runs than the 3 runs in 1 inning you put up on Monday night. That has to change and needs to change if you want to have success in this set. Also, shout out Zach Geloff. Was a really big fan of him after his first year in Oakland. Actually was Oakland. Struggled mightily last year, got demoted, injured, and then demoted this year. Made his return just in time for a Tigers game. Kind of the zone expanded a little bit on that bases loaded call to get him striking out looking. But hopefully he can find it again. He was a really fun player to watch a couple years ago. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. The sky's not falling. The Tigers have what? I think the Royals lost again. Do they? Yeah, they have a 10.5 game lead over Kansas City and a 12.5 over Cleveland, who's now 2 games under 500. Like, they're fine. They're they're totally fine. This is not like the end of the world, but certainly a frustrating game, and they need to clean it up if they want to solidify that top seed. That should be the goal. The goal is not to limp into the postseason and barely make it. You control your own destiny for getting a first round bye and not having to play a 3-game series. You need to take advantage of that. That is the expectation. That is the goal. That is where our sights are set. Not just making the postseason. That's going to happen, barring a catastrophic collapse of epic proportion. So you need to clean it up and go secure that number 1 seed. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. And we, of course, will be back tomorrow. I appreciate you all greatly. It's almost 2 a.m., so I am going to go to bed, and I will see you same time tomorrow. All right? Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Appreciate you all greatly. Go Tigers, baby.